Thank you all for coming today. I'm here with Senator Ayotte, and I believe Senator Tester is going to join us before we finish. As many of you are aware, we have been debating how to get at the very difficult and embarrassing and critical problem of sexual assault in our military. Kelly and I, Senator Ayotte and I, both are former prosecutors. Both of us have spent an inordinate amount of time talking with prosecutors in the military, studying the Uniform Code of Military Justice, analyzing the facts behind this critical problem, and both of us agree that the best way to protect victims and realize more aggressive and successful prosecutions is by keeping the chain of command in the process at the beginning of a criminal proceeding within the UCMJ. We believe that there will be less retaliation. We believe there'll be more prosecutions, and the numbers support that. We believe that the only way to hold command accountable is to make them responsible, not to completely remove their responsibility. We believe that's a recipe for disaster. We have been frustrated in that many of the voices that have talked about this have been men. And we wanted to make sure that women who have served in the military, some of whom have been victims at some point in their life of some sexual assault, stepped forward and talked about their perspective. Behind us today, we have Judge Advocate, a colonel from the U.S. Army. We have retired 06 officers who were not judge advocates, Captain Kathy Beasley from the Navy. We have Colonel Lisa Schneck from the Army that was the judge advocate. We have Colonel Anna Smith, who is Marine Corps retired. We have retired Navy Master Chief Petty Officer Jacqueline DeRosa. These are non-commissioned officers. Retired Coast Guard Reserve Chief Petty Officer Penny Collins, and retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant Barbara Taylor. These are all retired. None of them work for the Department of Defense. They're all here in their personal capacities, speaking from their personal capacities. But their body of knowledge about this issue is substantial, because between them we have 180 years of military service. All of these women entered the military at a time where these problems were even worse than they are today. And all of these women have watched as our military has tried to adjust to more women in our military and treating those women with dignity and respect. All of them understand the challenge. All of them believe that the negative unintended consequences of removing commanders entirely will have a bad impact on prosecutions and victims. So I will now turn it over to Senator Jon Tester to say a few words, and Kelly will say a few words, and then we'll hear from these retired military women, and then we will take any questions you have.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. And Claire, thank you for your good work. This is an issue that requires thought and vision, and Claire has really done a great job really looking at this issue from all sides, as a prosecutor, the victim perspective, and moving forward. I would just say this. I think taking out the chain of command, first of all, under this proposal, the victim has different rights than they had before. And I think they have more availability to be able to take care of the problem than they ever have before, and more than any other proposal that's out there. But our military is a very important to this country. We have commanders in the field that literally are directing people in life and death situations. We put full confidence in them to make the right decisions. There is no reason why we shouldn't continue to place that confidence in them when it comes in such a sensitive issue as military sexual assault. And then if they make the wrong decision, they can appeal it up the chain of command. I just want to say thank you to Claire. This has not been an easy issue, but the bottom line is the victim, very, very important that they get all the access that they need to be able to rectify the situation, and we need to maintain our military as the strongest in the world in that process. Thank you, and with that, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Claire Senator McCaskill for her incredible leadership on this issue, and especially her experience of having prosecuted these types of cases. I myself, too, was a prosecutor, and so having had that experience in the civilian system, we came to this looking at it, understanding that this is a serious problem that must be addressed in our military, and working together the provisions that are in the proposal that came out of the Armed Services Committee certainly have strong protection for victims, including Special Victims Counsel. But as Senator Tester and Senator McCaskill have said, and you will hear from those who have the experience in this system, and I want to thank all of you for being here, for your service to our country. 181 years of service, incredible, with the experience of having seen what this is like, and what the importance also of the chain of command is to addressing this problem. But what this comes down to is we cannot let commanders off the hook. Everything within the military happens within the chain of command. And if we take away the responsibility of commanders to make sure that victims are supported, to make sure that these cases are vigorously prosecuted, and we know that commanders are more likely, based on the data, to bring more cases than just when prosecutors and lawyers are involved, then if we take it away from them, then we are also taking away the responsibility to act. It is hard to ask someone to be accountable for a failure to act when you take away responsibility to act. So in order to make sure that victims are supported, and I believe that holding commanders accountable, keeping this within the chain of command, but making sure that there is an appeal, as we have given to the civilian secretary if there's a difference of opinion, and even if there is the same opinion that a case should not be prosecuted, that also gets another level of review under our proposal. That will make sure that commanders hold people accountable, that victims are supported, and then when a commander makes a decision to pursue a sexual assault case, that the entire unit knows that the victim will be supported and that this is unacceptable behavior, not only within that unit, but within the entire military. So I very much appreciate certainly Claire's leadership, Senator Tester being here today. Most of all, I want you to hear from the women who have served our country with distinction and their perspective today. So I'll turn it over to them.
We will begin with Captain Kathy Beasley, United States Navy, retired.
I just have a few things to say. I'm not used to being in front of a press group like this. I'm here as a private citizen, a retired naval officer, one who served in numerous command and leadership positions. I understand this is a really, really tough, hard issue. It's painful. It's painful for the victims, and many times it's painful for the accused. It's painful for all of us in the system. And really what it boils down to at the end of the day is the commander's ability to exercise good, fair, strong leadership. Also, it boils down to trust for the victims and the accused and all of us, trust in the chain of command. I feel like the provisions in the draft bill as it stands, the NDAA, provides all those things I think as a commander I would have wanted in dealing with tough cases. I think it preserves the chain of command, the trust relationships and the strength of it, the integrity of it. And we really need to be all about developing policies and actions that will preserve the integrity and trust and strength of the chain of command, because that's really where we deal with all these things.
Just introduce yourself here.
I'm Colonel Anna Smythe, retired 31 years in the United States Marine Corps. I wouldn't have traded a day, but the thing that I find with this issue is that what you don't understand if you're not in the military is that the fabric and the essence of the military is built, that structure is built around the chain of command. That's where the authority is, that's where the trust is, the confidence is in that commander. He has to uphold the honor and that he put in by taking his oath of office. That was his responsibility. When you take command, that command is the essence of everything you have been taught since the day you walked in the Corps. If we dismantle or weaken the chain of command, we are lost. How can you possibly take out of the chain of command, away from the commander, the authority for criminal action? That's part and parcel of what you are assigned to do from day one. It is an emotional issue. We all feel for the victims. We're all human, and it's easy to lose sight of what we really want to accomplish here. There is a problem. The services are perhaps late in recognizing it as they promulgated a war for the last 12 years. But the reality is, we are aware. They are coming forth. There's a lot of things already in place. And with the legislation that the senators, to include Senator Gillibrand, have put in place, I applaud her bringing it forth. It's important. There has to be change. And the checks and balances that we are working toward with this legislation are critical. Things like leveling the playing field when young people come in. You know, America is a melting pot. We've got every kind of individual comes into the military. Some are very naive from a small town that have very little exposure. Others come with their own baggage from abused and broken homes. All of that, they come in. Some run away from home to come in the service. Some volunteer because they want to be part of that ethos. But we have to help them when they come in by providing that training from day one. Training that allows them to talk about what's happened in their past, bring their experiences forward, and explain to them, help them understand situational awareness, help them to understand what is right and what is wrong in a situation so they can help themselves and not let predators use them. Because like in every essence of society, every area of society, we have predators. The military is not immune to that. But and we hold the military in a higher accountability, and we should. And I think if we look at the legislation that is going forward, and I hope it passes, it's all really good. They have to be able to anonymously report. And there have to be track records on people kept so that we can build profiles on people. All of that is critical. We can't overturn convictions that a jury has put in place. Yes, all of that. But please, please, don't throw away the structure on which the military is built. Don't take away from the commander the most important thing he has, and that's the trust and confidence. And why will it be better for the victim? You know, Senator Tester asked us that the other day. And I said, it will be better for the victim because the commander sets the climate. The commander sets the climate, the morale. If that person came to me, and it happened, I had 2 commands in the Marine Corps, they knew they could come to me. They trusted in me, they believed in me. Now we have let some people down, and we have to fix that by holding commanders accountable. Checks and balances are great, but that commander's authority is paramount. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody who wants to speak, step up and introduce yourself. Okay, I will.
Good morning. I am Chief Petty Officer Penny Collins. I'm retired from the United States Coast Guard Reserve, served for 34 years, And as a non-commissioned officer, there weren't any sexual assaults or investigations I had to do under my watch, because hopefully there wouldn't be any under my watch. But what I would like to say is this: concerning the authority of the commanders to investigate and also send up to prosecution, depending on what the JAGs and the convening authorities want to do, it is very important that they maintain that within their commands. The other thing I would like to say is that for victims may not always know their rights in terms of who they can report allegations of sexual assault or sexual harassment. So a lot of that has to do with training within the commands of telling or making available resources for the victims to go to. They may not necessarily have to go directly to their chain of command or any other first-line supervisor. They may be able to go outside of that, but they need to know what their rights are. So, in my opinion, the commands need to maintain that authority for investigation or prosecution of sexual harassment or sexual assault. Thank you.
I'm the resident JAG. Colonel Lisa Skank, retired from the Army, 25 years in the Army. Before I became a JAG, I was a line officer. I was a Signal Corps officer, and then the Army paid for me to go to law school. First of all, I'd like to thank the senators for allowing us this forum. I've watched this in the press, and I've been very upset about the fact that there seems to be only one side of the story, and there's no one to speak to what could actually happen if they took the commanders out of the process. I've seen it from both sides. I was a prosecutor. I was a victim witness liaison. I lived with an infantry brigade in Korea, and I've seen this issue progress, and I've watched it, and I urge our political leaders and the media to look at the facts and look at the potential impact for taking the commander out of the process. It is a very sweeping change. I urge the politicians and our leaders to take a measured, thoughtful approach to change. Yes, there should be change. The proposal that's before the senators have talked about is really important, is important for victims, and it is going to address what needs to be addressed, victims' rights. If you take out the convening authority from the process, you are essentially gutting the military justice process. You have to look at why they're there in the first place. They're there for discipline, and they're in our military justice process is for discipline and for mobility. I'm the Army person here, and it scares me, the thought of us taking a process that Senator Gillibrand uses the UK and Israel and Canada and Australia as examples, our allied forces. I urge the press to look at the facts of those allied forces and their process. Those processes will not help victims. They have less court-martials. They have less convictions. They have less troops. Our Fort Hood alone has 45,000 active duty soldiers. Canada has 70,000. Yet Fort Hood exceeds the conviction rate of Canada. They are equal to the Israeli Defense Forces in court-martials. The Israeli Defense Forces, 176,000 forces, yet Fort Hood with 45,000 have equal amount of sexual assault offenses prosecuted and court-martials that occur. So I think it needs to be an informed and measured response. It's not going to help those victims. The victims need to be empowered, and this bill empowers the victims. They need to have their own attorney. They need to go to their attorney, their counsel, and they need to be told where they can report. There's 9 other places to report aside from the chain of command in the Army. There's 9 different places you can go. The other thing they need to be told is they can initiate the court-martial process themselves by preferring charges. Military victims can prefer charges against military accused. They don't have to wait for the JAG office. They don't have to wait for the commander. And that's what that victim counsel is going to tell them. They just need to be empowered. If you take the court-martial process away from the convening authorities for sexual assaults or for major offenses, which is the Gillibrand proposal, That allows them to say, hey, the JAGs are dealing with it. The JAGs are dealing with it. They need to be held accountable and be a part of the process. So take a good hard look at those proposals that are, aside from the one we're talking about, the proposals that say mirror the allied forces. The United States Army, the missions of the service for the Department of Defense, 1.5 million active duty service members. We are bigger, we have different missions than those allies, and we're more deployable. So we need to take a measured response that actually helps those victims. And that's what my 2 cents. Sorry for that.
Good morning. My name is Fleet Master Chief Jacqueline DeRosa, Navy retiree, 30 years. Thank you for the opportunity. Senator, thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is a very emotional issue, and I stand with my colleagues back here in supporting maintaining the command and control, the authority within the command. It goes beyond, removing that would go more beyond just the initial impact of that command. It could have an adverse impact on our military's capability overall. And that's what needs to be looked at as decisions are being made. It's not necessarily the impact at the local level, but how will it impact our military as a whole? We are not advocating maintaining a status quo. Changes do need to be made. We have some cracks in our processes and our systems, and our services are actively working to correct those, and I think we're on the right track. I know the victims have expressed concern of lack of trust and confidence in the chain of command. And I would tell you, one of the things I think that needs to be looked at, and that I mentioned to the senators in previous meetings, is look at the investigative process. I can speak from my own experience as a command senior enlisted. When I had a couple of rape cases to deal with, the investigative process was taking over 12 months. You wonder why there's lack of confidence? When the leadership's hands are tied because an investigative process is extended so long. That's what needs to be fixed. That's what needs to be worked on. Don't take the authority away from commands. Let's look at their processes that can support the commanders. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Barbara Taylor, United States Air Force retired. Ma'am, sir, thank you so very much for letting us have a voice to this very critical and powerful issue. I know we've all said the same thing, but we are all very, very convicted in trying to get people to understand the powerful impact of taking the chain of command away would be. It would be devastating to the United States military. And I know we're talking about the issue of sexual assault, but this particular part of the legislation would also affect commanders' ability to prosecute rape cases, aggravated assault, robbery, and other very, very serious military crimes. It's not just this one issue. Although sexual harassment is a very serious issue as far as the military goes, that's a small portion of what the commanders are prosecuting or trying to prosecute against. I also want to make a statement about the quote-unquote chain of command. There needs to be an education process of knowing that the chain of command starts from the lowest airman up to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and everywhere in between. People don't understand that if I'm a senior airman and my supervisor is a sergeant and they are friends with the accused, that's why they don't want to talk about it. That's why they don't want to seek relief in the chain of command. It starts at a much lower level. Yes, commanders are held responsible, but this is an issue that goes into the depths of the military chain of command. We need more education. We need more, as it had been said before, at the level when people enter the United States Air Force. Because, as I said before, this is a societal problem. This is not just a military problem. This doesn't just happen in the military. It's just that, unfortunately, the military has made some major missteps that have caused this to come to light. And by the way, I think it should have come to light because we have all seen and heard and known of things that were incredibly horrible that have happened to women and male victims in our military. But The education piece is a must do, and it happens from the lowest airman or the lowest sailor or the lowest Marine soldier all the way up through the chain of command, the entire chain of command. But please don't take the commander's authority away. Senator Gillibrand yesterday in a call-in said that she wants to make sure that commanders are held responsible. A commander cannot be held responsible if he does not have the authority to act. Thank you.
There is data available to any of you that are interested that show that the countries that have gone to this system have not had an increase in reporting. That is being touted as if we only changed the system, reporting would go up. None of the nations that have changed their systems have had an increase in reporting. The data does not support that position. Secondly, we know that literally dozens and dozens and dozens of cases, just in the last 2 years, prosecutors turned down the cases and commanders said, go ahead. We know that if prosecutors are the last say, that we will have fewer prosecutions. That's what the data supports. And you can theorize in a vacuum, but then you can look at the data and understand that doing this is not a magic bullet. And common sense will tell you that if you've been victimized and you go back in the unit, do you think it's more likely you're going to get retaliation if a bunch of outside lawyers have said to go forward, or if the commander has said go forward? A level of protection comes to the victim because the commander has said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And now we'll open it up for questions, and we're going to try to stay in the background and let you ask. And if you want to, you probably don't remember all their names.